Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Good evening. Welcome to our Tuesday, December 11, 2018 City Council meeting. Full house tonight. Thank you all for being here this evening. Clerk, I'd ask that you read the roll to start our meeting, please.
Council members Selberg.
Here.
Sale.
Here.
Starr. Staley.
Here.
Brecky.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Kiley.
Here.
Neitzer.
Here. All right, it's my honor tonight to have Pastor Carmen Van Scoik here with us from Celebrate Community Church. Carmen is going to be giving our invocation tonight, so I ask that you would rise for that and then stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance immediately following.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, this evening we have so much to be thankful for. During the season of giving, we first of all thank you for how you gave your Son to live among us and provide a way for us to experience a relationship with you. What a great God you are. Tonight I want to pray for this community we live in. Thank you for the privilege of living in Sioux Falls. Part of what makes Sioux Falls great are the people who call this place home. God, we know that this alone does not make Sioux Falls great. For a city also needs leaders to make difficult decisions on our behalf, and those leaders make up the city council. I pray for wisdom, compassion, and the courage to do what is right. I pray also for our mayor that you would continue to give him the strength and passion for that which is in the best interests of Sioux Falls. As he understands that, give him the energy to carry that out. God, be all over this place and help us to be a people of love and grace as the world desperately needs more of that. It's in the name of Jesus we pray these things. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which
which stands one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, before we get to the main business of the meeting, we kind of have a few special things we want to do this evening. First thing I want to do is recognize Troop 346, Boy Scout Troop 346, all the good-looking dudes in beige here. If you guys want to stand up and be recognized, they're here to see how government works, so thanks for being here. The other neat thing we get to do tonight is recognize some of our city employees. So every year we have the opportunity to recognize 3 employees in city government who go above and beyond in their regular course of work. And those 3 employees are given what's called the Cruisenberry Award, the Fullenkamp Award, and our Safety Excellence Award. And those awards were held earlier this week, yesterday at a luncheon actually. And tonight, we get to honor those folks that received those awards, and they also had to come to make sure they got their check, so I know they're here. I see them all. And so the first award, the VL Cruisenberry Award, is an award that is given annually to an employee who embodies all the values that we hold dear as a city. And so the nominees for that, get my sheet here. These are the employees that were nominated for that. Kevin Henkel, who is a sergeant with our police department. Aaron Nyberg, another sergeant with our police department. Emily Harris, who's a library associate with Siouxland Libraries. Gabe Chapman, who works as a mechanical inspector in planning and development services. Marcia Cumleen, who's an accountant in finance. Milo Hartson, who's an animal control officer. And Patty Beckman, who's an animal control officer. So those were the nominees. The Cruisenberry Award this year And I can read you what the criteria for that here. The Cruisenberry Award was established in memory of former Mayor V.L. Cruisenberry, recognizes and honors annually an employee who demonstrates excellent performance, judgment, productivity, loyalty, professional pride, and other noteworthy accomplishments in relation to city employment. And so the employee this year that was chosen for that, and he's here this evening, is Sergeant Aaron Nyberg. And so I would like to ask Sergeant Nyberg and his family to come up, if you would. And while they're coming up, Sergeant Nyberg is in charge of the day-to-day operations of our drug task force. And if you know anything about our drug task force, these guys have had a heck of a year. They've done a really great job. They have confiscated a record amount of narcotics. But some of the things that were in Aaron's nomination, these are what people talked about. They talked about his training and his mentoring ability, and they actually talked about the fact that a lot of people end up going through the drug task force unit and going on to other areas within the department due to promotion. And that's a testament to his ability to invest in people, train people, and equip people for the next chapter in their careers with the PD. So, Aaron, thank you so much for your work as a sergeant with the Drug Task Force. Family, thanks for loaning this guy to us and for the great work that he does. If it's all right, I would love to know who's with you tonight, if you wouldn't mind introducing this beautiful family of yours.
Sure. This is my wife, Ellie, who really probably deserves the award more than I do. And then we have Caden, Benjamin, Mariah, and Melanie.
Well, if that is the case, I'll get your award here. I will give your wife the check. You can have the centerpiece. So please give a big round of applause to Aaron. The second award is what's called the Gene Fullenkamp Award. The Gene Fullenkamp Management Excellence Award. Gene Fullenkamp was a former human resources manager with the city of Sioux Falls, and it recognizes and honors annually a high performer and leader in the mid-management employee group in the city whose performance drives change, builds commitment, maximizes talent, and focuses on excellence in customer service. And so the nominees for that were Lance Weatherly. Lance is a storm drainage engineer in Public Works. Matt McAravey, a battalion chief with Sioux Falls Fire Rescue. Brian Christiansen, also a battalion chief with Fire Rescue. Darren Freese, water program coordinator with Public Works. Dean Borkart, our business operations manager with Public Works. Dustin Hansen with our landfill. I think Dustin is here somewhere. I think I saw him. Jason Bieber, who's here almost every Tuesday night with Urban Planning and Development Services. Karen Leonard, our Deputy City Attorney. Ken Gratz, a business analyst with Finance. Crystal Peterson, a branch manager with Siouxland Libraries. Matt Nelson with Public Parking. And Megan Nagel, who is a practitioner with our Health Department. So those were the folks that were all nominated for this honor tonight. And the winner of that award was none other than Ken Gratz. So, Ken, come on forward with your beautiful family, please. And this is the last time I'll do the joke, but it's congrats to Ken Gratz. It just worked out so good. So this is, if I can read what Ken's nominator had to say about him, a lot of words just stood out in this. He talked about Ken's willingness, volunteering to assist, true team player. Much of his knowledge has been gained organically. He just seeks to learn. But a big thing that stood out in this guy's nomination was his innovation and his ability to save the taxpayers' money. And it talks specifically about a program where Ken worked with our street department and looked at how we were renting our motor graders for clearing street and snow removal and servicing the streets. And they came up with a new program, a new lease option program that, without getting into all the details, saved the city over $1.3 million over the term of this contract by looking at a new way that we're going to lease our motor graders. So this guy, we're only giving you $500. You save the city $1.3 million. Incredible. So it's very reassuring to know we have people like Ken in our finance team that are looking out for the taxpayer dollar. So Ken, I'd love for you to also introduce these Hanjaks, as we call them in Dutch, and your family.
Yep. So this is my wonderful wife, Lori, and this is my oldest daughter, Clara, Nora, and that little guy's Bowen right there.
Well, great to meet you girls. Do you know that your dad's a pretty big deal tonight? Yeah, kind of, maybe. Well, congrats. Thanks for the work that you do for the city. Thanks for being here tonight. Please give Ken another round of applause. And our last award tonight goes to, it's for excellence in safety. And it recognizes employees in the city who go above and beyond in ensuring that we are following proper safety protocols and looking out for the safety of our coworkers. And we had two nominees for this. We had two folks in our landfill team, Kevin Vermillion and Jamie Kep. I forgot the form at home. So Jamie Kep and Kevin Vermillion, they both work in our landfill department, and Sergeant Jessica Speckmeyer, who was with our police department. And the winner of that award this year was Sergeant Speckmeyer with our police department. So as you guys are coming forward, I'll talk about how you were nominated and received the honor. So come on up here. So Sergeant Speckmeyer was tasked with putting together and revisiting our return to work program that we had in our PD. What that is as officers have to be off duty for a certain period of time, either for injury or other reasons, ensuring that they're ready to return to duty. Being a police officer is physically, mentally demanding, and so making sure that our program protocol was in place, and she retooled that entire program. It talked about in her nomination how she implemented several pilots, which is something that we're trying to do more of in city government. Not acting like we have all the answers right away, but implementing pilots and then testing those pilots to see the results. Validation testing after we implemented those pilots, and the result was an incredible program that has been very well received by our PD. It ensures that our officers that are getting back on the streets are equipped and ready to do their job safely. So Sergeant Speckmeyer, congratulations. Thank you for your service. It's just getting started, so don't feel like you have to leave. I mean, we're, you know. All right, great way to start our meeting this evening. With that, we're going to move forward in our agenda to the approval of the consent agenda.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Kylie.
Motion approved by Erickson, seconded by Kylie. Councilors, is there a discussion on that? Seeing none, I'd ask for a vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes. Mr. Neitzer.
And Neitzer.
Oh, pardon me, Neitzer.
Yes.
You still count here, buddy. 8-0, that passes. We'll now move on to our regular agenda. And can I have a motion on that, please?
Move approval. Second.
All right, move to approve by Kylie and seconded by Selberg. Any discussion on our regular agenda? Okay, if not, I'd ask for a vote on that, please.
Councilmember Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes. All right, that is passed 8-0. We're now at the public input portion of tonight's agenda. As a reminder, input during this portion will last no more than 30 minutes. Because public input for all regular agenda items will be taken, you're asked to limit your general public input to topics not appearing later on in the agenda. For this portion and regular agenda items, speakers are limited no more than 3 minutes unless additional time is granted by this council. And at this time, I'd like to invite anyone forward who would like to address your council. And clerk, please note that the time is 7:15. Come forward, ma'am. Good evening.
Hi. My name is Cheryl Johnson. First of all, I want to thank you all for serving the city. I'm sure working with constituents is not always a lot of fun sometimes. But I'm here to request that the city seek reimbursement for the security costs spent on Trump's September 7th visit to Kristi Noem's private fundraiser. Had it been a public rally, I would not have an issue with it, but the purpose of his visit was to attend a private, invitation-only fundraiser to help Kristi Noem get elected governor. I know we need to keep our president safe, and our police, highway patrol, sheriff's department, and air guard did a great job, as they always do. I'm saying that the city should seek reimbursement for the cost of security for what was a private fundraiser designed to help Noem win the governor's seat. Trump was in Sioux Falls for less than 3 hours. He went from the airport to the fundraiser and back. And this pay-to-play fundraiser cost $500 for general admission and cost the citizens of Sioux Falls over $20,000 in security cost. That's a year's wages for some of our citizens. It raised over $500,000 for Noem's campaign. Now, I know funds are set aside for events like rallies, marches, festivals, and marathons, whether they're political or not. But those are public events. They're not pay-to-play events that are closed to the public and the media. And I also know that Sioux Falls sometimes will cover private events, but those events aren't designed to help a candidate win a governor's spot. The president did not come to Sioux Falls to visit the city. He came here to help Kristi Noem become governor. And by paying the security expense of the fundraiser without reimbursement, the city has made an in-kind contribution to Noem's campaign, which makes the city in violation of campaign finance law. This law is SDCL 122720, which states, the governing body of a county, municipality, or other political subdivision of the state may not expend or permit the expenditure of public funds for the purpose of influencing the nomination or election of any candidate. The president's visit was meant to influence the election in favor of Noem. The donated security cost further influenced the election because they allowed the Noem campaign to save over $20,000 that they could then use for further attack ads swaying voters. I'm asking the council to get reimbursement from either the Noem campaign or the Republican Party for the security costs for this private fundraiser used to influence Noem's bid for governor. I'm disappointed that Noem's campaign actually has not volunteered to pay this cost since they raised over $500,000. And voters are tired of entitled politicians using taxpayer money as their personal slush funds to further their own political careers. I believe you all are men and women of high integrity, and I ask that you do the right thing for the citizens of Sioux Falls. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. Anyone else for public input? Come forward, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Dwayne Skipper, Sioux Falls. The city water and wastewater history of rates that I presented last week bears repeating. The following numbers were calculated from my personal bills and used an average monthly residential volume of 6 units or 4,500 gallons. The first rate increase going back to 1995 started in 2006. From 2006 to 2018, continuing year after year rate hikes have raised the average Sioux Falls utility bill by 189%. In dollars paid, the bill nearly tripled. In 2006, that annual amount was $247. In 2018, it is now $715. The city has disclosed the 12 years of increases as $2 to $2.50 monthly. It turned out to be $3.25 per month, every month for 144 months. This cumulative effect resulted in the city underdisclosing the increase by 30 to 62%. This example confirms to question it's only a couple dollars per month type disclosures. So what is going to happen with the new 260 million spending? With the proposed rate increases of 6%, 5%, 4%, and 3% over 4 years, the estimated yearly bill in 2023 will now be $853. So build it and they will come. Where are the 100,000 people going to come from? And finally, is this reasonable? Consider this as a comparison. Gasoline is routinely reported in the news. In 2006, gasoline was about $2.50 per gallon. At the same 189% rate of water bill increases, we would now be paying $7.23 per gallon. This happens to be higher than what the Yellow Vest movement in France is protesting about at this very time. So now ask yourself, is it reasonable?
Thank you, Dwayne. Anyone else this evening? If you'd like to speak, come forward and be ready after she's
Sarah
done.
Broussard, Sioux Falls. So we had an altercation on a business on pulling up calls for service here. Mr. Ken Cutler, as tenant, is moving out for illegal activity as we speaking now on no sales tax license and not having a massage license. Mr. Cutler decided to keep his tenant there and keep calling the police to jack up the citizens' taxpaying money until we pushed the issue. And then I started Vito Cameron and turning them in Severa and Sanford and all of these high roller dollar people getting massages illegally. So yes, we need to hold the landlords accountable for calls for action. And we need to hold them accountable for not calling the police and let tenants keep doing criminal activities on property, keep getting the same people in rental properties and having 3 and 4 drug busts a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks in the same rental. We need to hold them accountable. So when council member attack another council member saying that keep calling the police, yeah, it is the answer, but the landlords have to come up to part 2 and do their part. We can't be having convicted felons in there selling dope, getting busted, and coming right back and doing the same thing repetitively. There's laws for that here. Okay, so I know that the city attorney's office holds people accountable for nuisance property. I'm well aware of many properties that are held accountable for it. So we need to start holding commercial landlords accountable for having people in there doing prostitution, illegal massaging, not having a proper citizenship here to be legal in the United States also, and the list goes on and on with Mr. Cutler Law Firm. Now, another issue was Greg Neitzer on the news here. And you know, I'm one of them that said that I had told them that I said, make sure you tell the media you're a rubber stamper. That was just a joke here. Because they always saying he's a rubber stamper or a puppet on a string or whatever not. And so Greg Neitzer, Pat Starr, Teresa Staley, all of y'all have y'all's different views and opinions on things, and most of y'all, I appreciate them. Some of y'all I support better than others. But when Greg Neitzer and Teresa and Pat and everybody else likes to make their opinions to be known, the public should not bash them by calling them puppets or analysts or whatever not. So the public does need to hold back their comments on disrespecting council members. But I wanted to apologize. It was jokingly when they said that Greg Neitzer was a rubber stamper here.
Thank you, Sierra. Good evening.
Hi, Stephen Ciano again. want to talk about money, as a couple other people have. The money for the expansion of the sewer. As I understand it, if I were to get a place that required an expansion of the sewer, expanding the line into a development or a rural dwelling, I would have to pay extra for the expansion of it. So I'm thinking, I don't know if you people considered this angle, but I would say the people that are building could be taxed at a much greater level to compensate. So it would actually be more costly for them and less painful to the general public who are just getting the same service as they bought into initially. I think that's fairer about that. There's been talk about bicycles. I think that you ought to consider also small engine on a bicycle. If you look up Staton Inc., S-T-A-T-O-N, Inc., they make small engines for bicycle. And I'm thinking of going that route since I have difficulty riding a bicycle now, as well as difficulty walking. So please entertain that as well. And about the public input, where one of you who proposed was looking to withdraw it, I think that that should indeed be permitted because it is a violation of the public. And as has been said before, all of you can be held liable for supporting such violation of the public's right to speak and air their grievances. I want to say also that I started coming here about my health matters, health needs not being cared for adequately by Falls Community Health. They needed to get the records and take certain action in order to get money coming in. Well, on November 1st, I called over there trying to get an appointment for my condition, and I was told we don't have the resources here. Go to the emergency room. That's what I was told on November 1st. Apparently, I have, maybe it's associated with a swelling that they found, carotid artery obstruction. And this is part of my issues. So I'm still trying to get Human Relations Department and whoever else to help out with my obtaining medical needs. Thank you.
Stephen. Is there anyone else here to speak tonight? Clerk, next item, please.
Item 14, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, extending the Surface Ambulance Service franchise of Paramedics Logistics South Dakota, LLC.
Good evening, Jill Franken, Public Health Director with the City of Sioux Falls. Before you is item 14, the ordinance that will extend the original surface ambulance agreement. Are these appropriately placed?
Perfect.
Okay, good. I'm just hearing something. So this will extend the original surface ambulance franchise agreement with Patient Care Paramedics Logistics for an additional 6 years after the current 5-year agreement ends, extending this agreement until May 20th, 2026. So there were a number of factors that were taken into consideration by REMSA when they determined that Patient Care Paramedics Logistics was in substantial compliance and was eligible for this contract extension. I've talked about those a number of times at various council informationals and talked about that at the first reading, but a few key areas I just want to remind you of that were taken into consideration were that they were well exceeding their response time performance that's specifically laid out in the ordinance and in the contract. They were required to become CAS accredited or obtain the accreditation. Not only did they do that well before the timeline that was required, they also did that receiving a perfect score. And they also have demonstrated a number of quality performance measures, quality performance indicators, and they've also participated in system collaboration on a number of levels that have been really substantial and have improved the quality of the EMS across the system. So in addition to assuring substantial contract compliance, the REMSA board chair and the health department team, all of us, we met with a number of EMS stakeholders, and each of them, when we interviewed them, at the conclusion of that, extended their full support for this 6-year contract extension. Those stakeholders, to remind you, we've talked about this before, but to remind you, those that were interviewed were our fire chief, our police chief, Metro Communications Director, our EMS Medical Director, Minnehaha and Lincoln County Emergency Management, our Sioux Falls Finance and Purchasing folks, and our health systems, Sanford, Avera McKinnon, and the Heart Hospital. To talk a little bit more about this, I'd like to ask Gary Myers, our REMSA board chair, and Dr. Abby Pulzin, our REMSA medical board chair, who are both here tonight, to come forward because they have a few comments to make regarding the recommendation that they've made to you.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Abigail Pulzine. I'm an emergency physician at Sanford, and I've been the chairperson of the REMSA Medical Board for the past year. And together with my vice chair, Dr. John Travnicek, who works at Avera, we both would like to issue our support for extending the contract. We've both been pleased with how the ambulance service has been operating. They've been very responsive to any suggestions or projects that we've come up with for both hospital systems. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has anything specific.
Thank you, Abigail. We'll hear from Gary, then we'll take public input, and if there's questions, then we'll bring you up. Thank you.
Good evening, Gary Myers, REMSA board chair. I apologize for my chest cold. You're not going to hear anything new from me tonight that you haven't heard already. Just reaffirming the fact that the REMSA board does support this extension fully based on the substantial ongoing compliance with the contract measures, continually exceeding those requirements of the contract. And the feedback that we've received, as Jill had mentioned, the consistent, overwhelming positive feedback that we've received from our partners, both within those who sit around the REMSA table with us and review performance, review the day-to-day operations with the REMSA board and the health department, and again, as Jill had stated, our health care system partners throughout the city. We have not heard any negative feedback from any of those people that are part of this system, that we all are part of with REMSA and the city health department and the county. None of those partners have stated any resistance to this extending this contract, and so REMSA continues to support this contract extension. And I can be happy to answer any questions as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you to both of you. I appreciate that. There are a number of other stakeholders are here tonight, and most importantly, though, is patient care, paramedics, logistics, whose leadership is here tonight, and who have accepted the offer of this extended agreement for an additional 6 years. And they are able to speak to any item or answer any questions or additional information that may be needed as you weigh this decision. As the health director for the city of Sioux Falls, I get to be the person who comes up here before you and presents these types of items and conducts this type of city business. But I have to tell you that, it's just a privilege, because really it's the system that this community is really very fortunate to have when they need it. And, many of them are here tonight, and I really want to thank them all. And it starts with Metro 911, and then is Sioux Falls Police Department, Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, our health department, EMS, quality assurance team out of our department, our health systems, some of who are here, and then our REMSA boards. They all do great work together, all of us, to achieve the level of service that we enjoy in Sioux Falls. So with that,
thank you, Jill. Is there anyone from the public who would wish to speak on this item tonight?
Sierra Broussard, Sioux Falls. So I was a fan on taking the ambulance and the fire department and merging them together, until I went to the Oakview neighborhood meeting that I attended 2 weeks ago and learned about the ambulance system. The ambulance is accredited Always been about accreditation. I told you that with the police department. So accreditation is very important. It shows structure, organization, and what you're doing wrong to improve yourself. They are accredited, which was amazing to me. There's 5 priority calls for service here. Non-emergency is 15 minutes and 59 seconds here. And then it takes the fire department, the police department, and the ambulance to show up in a response. No, that's priority 1 is 8 minutes, 59 seconds. Non-emergency life-threatening response is 11 minutes and 59 seconds. Now, that is when you call dispatch. They're entering it in the computer and putting it to the ambulance service is about 35 seconds. Okay? And then priority 4 and 5 is patient transport duties here. Now, I was like some other people too when they said, well, the ambulance is just sitting in parking lots here. And I didn't know it either. The reason why ambulances are sitting in the parking lots is because they don't even have a station. So they're sitting behind that wheel in their truck, waiting on calls for service in high calls for service areas. Okay, this is what I learned over there. Okay, so their station is in their vehicle here. Now, so peak hours is 7 ambulances, and then at 9 p.m., if I'm correct, it drops to 5 ambulances. There are 750 pages in this contract here. I was very pleased by the ambulance, how he explained how much a stretcher costs, how much this costs, how much that costs, and everything. If we merge the ambulance with the police, with the fire department, it's going to cost a lot more money. And guys, please don't take it offensive here. I was a support of merging them together, but when you get the police and the fire and you get the ambulance together working on one patient, they all have to stay together and focus, and they have their duties. And that is very powerful when you're sitting there and they all collaborate together in one room working on one patient in a house. It's amazing. So I support that they still stay here in Sioux Falls and still collaborate and get along with the police and fire department, because it's a very powerful source to have here. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak on this item tonight? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Ronald Murray. I lived in Sioux Falls for 75 years. I recently, 3 years ago last week, that I used the ambulance service of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. They were brand new in Sioux Falls. I commend our fire department, police department. They were there within 5 minutes after I called, because I live not too far away, and within 6 minutes the ambulance service was there. But then they came in, and my wife, I wish they had the audio today, as I got the 911 call of my wife screaming bloody murder because she was having a heart attack. They came in, they made her walk out to the ambulance in December 4th at 10 above 0 in her bare feet. They put her in the ambulance. I called my daughter, who lives in Crook, South Dakota, and I went outside, and the ambulance was still there. I knocked on the rear door, and the ambulance guy said, well, we've got to get oxygen sensor on her finger, and she's got fingernail polish. I said, why don't you put it on her toe or her ear that tells the same thing? And so then I told the neighbors, because we had 2 cop cars and fire department and 2 ambulances there at the house at that time, woke the whole neighborhood up. So I explained to them my wife was having a heart attack. So they didn't leave the residence. And so I went and knocked on the door again, and the ambulance driver says, maybe we better get the hell out of here, because that guy might get a gun or something and come. So they drove off. They drove a half a block up the street and turned the lights off of the ambulance. So I thought, well, my wife passed away. So I gets in the car, and of course, they go the long way to the hospital, and I took the shorter route. And I got there, and my kids drove from Crook, South Dakota. They beat the ambulance there. It took them 25 minutes to go 5 miles. Now, in a school zone at 15 miles an hour, they would have been there a lot sooner than that. And then they put her in the emergency room, and I finally got in. They said, the ambulance driver said she's having a panic attack. Here's the EKG report from the ambulance that they took while they were in the ambulance, but did not send this to the hospital. They kept it in the ambulance, and they told them. So it was 3:30 I got there at 1 o'clock. It was 3:30 before she got to the cath lab because of the lousy procedure to the ambulance driver. Now, if these are
Thank you, Mr. Murray.
future ambulance service of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the extension should be lifted and leave them run out of their contract because we need better service than that.
Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Is there anyone else here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, do you have questions for staff, for Jill, for the REMSA folks on this item? Is there a motion anyone would like to make to get discussion started?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Nitzert.
Okay, move to approve by Erickson and seconded by Nitzert. Councilors, discussion on this item? Seeing none?
I have a question for our city attorney. Am I able to amend this contract?
If you amend the contract with any substance, it could constitute a counteroffer. And at this point, a counteroffer obviously wouldn't be in writing. And so an amendment could constitute, in the event of a counteroffer, that's also a rejection of the offer. And so in the event of an amendment, you're prohibiting entry into a contract at this point.
Because I wanted to amend it to 2022.
Okay.
Which would still, and can I just, or do I have to have okay, so you're saying you don't think I can do that, but for the sake of discussion, can I make that?
You're allowed to move for an amendment, but in the event that it passes, it could constitute a counteroffer as opposed to something that the other party could accept.
I get it, but if I want to make it, if I want to talk to this, what do I have to do to be able to make a statement?
Well, procedurally, you can move to amend.
Yes, so I won't, but then we have to vote on it if I get a second, right?
Correct.
Well, okay, so I'm going to move to amend this, for the sake of discussion, the contract to 2022.
Okay, is there a second on that?
Second, Star.
Okay, seconded by Councilor Starr. Discussion on that.
And I've said this before, but some of you may not have been in on the discussion, but there is this energy in our community about whether we're going to have fire and rescue take over this department. And when I brought it up previously, I was told that it would be a huge cost for the ambulance service to go into a shorter contract because they're going to have to replace all of our ambulances. And I know up front it would be a big cost if we take this on within our city for our citizens, but I really feel that we could get this done in 4 years. When we changed the ambulance service, I think it happened within a year, the last time around. So I was excited to look for options when I got elected because this was going to be coming due in 2020, but now we're going to be extending it for a long time. So that's why I made this motion, that just to say we'll give ourselves some time to work on this, but I think that we could look at outside the box and find a way of making this even a better system for our citizens. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Steele. Councilor Erickson.
I just want to share some information as I did some research for this today and looking at from December 7th, there's a recent Argus Leader article that is talking about an ambulance service in Brandon, South Dakota that's asking for assistance from Brandon for this and from the county, as well as there is a $1.7 million request in another city in the state of South Dakota that does have a facility, a city-owned ambulance service. And so I think that we're chartering in some unnecessary conversations at this point for this contract. I think that based on the evidence of them providing the service, meeting and exceeding all of these expectations that we've laid out in their contract, that we need to approve this for now. They're investing in new ambulances, they're investing in new facilities, they're investing in so much more that we need to be able to give them that assurity that why would you invest in all of that new equipment if you're going to be here for a year or two? It just doesn't make sense to do that. And just with looking at what some of these other cities are challenged with, asking their city council for $1.7 million of a tax write-off and a subsidy to the taxpayer, I don't want to cut other needed areas when we don't have an issue with this ambulance service. And so for those reasons, I will not be supporting this amendment. Thank you.
Councilor Sale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to speak in opposition to this amendment, and my reasoning is this. The tens of millions of dollars that we would be committing is unknown. And I think we've just came from a very long meeting last week where we anticipated a $260 million wastewater treatment plant without hard evidence on what it would take for the fire department to take it over. I'd be willing to extend this the full length of the contract. I have talked to the fire chief and I've talked to the union president, and they say this is the best system that they've had so far. I'm not saying it can't be improved. It could be response times. All of these things need to continue to be scrutinized. But at this point, at the juncture we're at with this discussion, I would say my personal opinion is let's give them their 6 years. Let's get the fire department and everybody to do a study to at least give us a ballpark of what it's going to take. Because if it is tens of millions of dollars, we need to plan for that as a city council. So that's why I'm speaking in opposition to your amendment. And if it fails, then I will vote in favor of the main motion.
Thank you, Councilor Sale. Councilor Staley.
There's been discussion by several council members that this could be a possibility in the future. I've even talked with our own fire chief about that. Let's face it, fire and rescue is already many times first on the scene. We're training these people to be responders, to be caregivers of the patients. The other thing that's an unknown is the profit margin that we have happening with this company. I've asked that many times that we don't get to know what kind of profit they're making. So when we talk about tens of millions of dollars, we don't know. And you're throwing tens of millions of dollars out. I'm going to say that's really no different than me speculating that we might have a $300 wastewater bill. I mean, you're just throwing a number out, and that's your right to do. But nonetheless, I think that giving an extra 4 years from here would be plenty of time to reevaluate this. This company, of course, if they have an asset of an ambulance, will take it with them wherever they go. Also, Councilor Starr has brought up in the past that the company we initially did business with on this has changed management within the board of directors, or what the energy of who's owning the company isn't the same as it was when we started. So anyway, I understand that. I think it's good to have the discussion. I've said it before, and so I'm just trying to vet this out for the public.
Councilor Neitzer.
The current contract runs out in May of 2020, so this would be, I suppose, a 2-year extension, and I would just submit that I don't see any provider that would agree to such a thing. I think we do need to study this, but at this point we would start the fuse burning on writing a blank check, and so I think we just need to be very deliberative and take a look at what it's going to cost and how we're going to move to it. And when I have the fire department, which I do, telling me that we need to do this deliberatively and they're not ready yet, I've got to take them at their word.
Council, I'm going to call for vote on this amendment, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
No.
Sale?
No.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky? No. Erickson?
No.
Kiley?
No.
Nitzert.
No.
All right, that fails 6-2. We're back to the original motion. Is there any further discussion on the original motion? Counselor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the things that I guess I wanted to say tonight as we're considering this, I'm impressed with the changes that have been made to the system over the last couple of years. I think it's awesome that the fire department is now going to be allowed to provide ALS services when they're on response time in less than 5 minutes is their goal. They're shortly at that. I think the REMSA board has worked really hard at allowing our firefighter paramedics to do their job, what they're trained for. We've done a good job as a council by adding additional pay for our paramedics to provide those ALS services because a majority of the time they're on scene first. The response time for the ambulance is 8 minutes and 59 seconds to be on time, which is often shorter than that. But at the same time, when you have the fire department that's there a majority of the time providing that initial service, it makes the high functioning system work better. It's still not perfect. There's still 30 to 40 times per month where there's exemptions and things that can't happen. There are thousands of times a month that they are able to respond each time. But if you're one of those families of the 30 to 40 times, it does stand out to you. It does make a significant difference to who you are or to how you're treated. And just because there are 7 calls in an hour, you know, we've at different times decided that system overload and it's acceptable to be there at whatever amount of time because the system's overloaded. I've also been concerned that we still only have one mutual aid agreement in place. We only have, and that's what Del Rapids is backing them up in this system. Yes, that's compliant with the contract, but the contract requires that they have one mutual aid agreement. Why don't we have a mutual aid agreement in place with Brandon, with other Garrettson, with the other regional partners? So I'm still concerned about the number of things that we have as a backup. And I'm not going to vote to extend this contract, and I know I'll be in the minority, but I think we've done a lot. We're moving forward in the right direction, but I think there's a lot more that we can do, and our citizens demand that.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other discussion, Council? I'm going to call for vote on this item, please.
Councilmember Selberg. Sale.
Yes.
Starr.
No.
Staley.
No.
Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
All right, that passes 6-2. Next item, please.
Item 15, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 57, Garbage and Recycling.
Welcome one of our full and cab nominees himself, Dustin Hanson.
Good evening, Landfill Superintendent, City of Sioux Falls. Revisions to Chapter 57, Garbage and Recycling. These have been fully vetted. They've been presented at Public Services Committee, informational, fully supported by our Solid Waste Planning Board, and we hope you to approve those, and I'll take any questions at this time.
Thanks, Dustin. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Councilors, you have questions for Dustin?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Sale.
Move to approve, Erickson, seconded by Sale. Discussion, Council? I'd ask for vote on this, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Boy Scouts, next item is our e-bike item we talked about. So here it is. Next item.
An ordinance, set a date, a second reading for Tuesday, December 18, 2018, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by revising Title 7 Traffic Code and Chapter 95 Parks and Recreation to provide for the operation of e-bicycles in the same manner as bicycles and to provide for certain pedestrian movements at controlled intersections.
Welcome, Kelby.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Kelby Maros with Parks and Recreation. Here tonight to talk about e-bikes, Class 1 e-bikes and ordinance revisions around that, and would like to provide a little bit of additional information that we did not provide during the informational session last week. Again, just as some background, e-bikes are currently not allowed on sidewalks or on our recreation trail system because they are considered motorized vehicles. They are currently allowed only on city streets. Various representatives from city departments have met with a bicycle user group that brought to us earlier this year that they would like to see us allow e-bikes, especially on our recreation trail system. And through that process, we have worked with them and others throughout this process to provide for you the proposed ordinance language that is being presented. Do also want to make sure that you are aware that there are other bike trail users that have expressed concern over allowing e-bikes or any other motorized vehicle on a recreational trail system. We did meet with the bike committee in November, had a very good discussion, and suggested changes that they had that night are included in the proposed ordinance language. The recommendations to allow Class 1 e-bikes on bike trails was approved by the Parks and Recreation Board at their meeting in November. Just to give you a side-by-side comparison about what is currently allowed for Class 1 e-bikes and what our proposal is, as you can see, city streets right now is the only allowable space for Class 1 e-bikes, and through our proposed ordinance, changes and revisions would extend to city bicycle lanes, cycle tracks, sidewalks, and our recreation trail system. There's been a lot of discussion about different classes of e-bikes, and the proposed ordinance language does provide for Class 1 e-bikes only. There is a federal code that includes a definition for e-bikes, and the language in the federal code is what helped us develop the ordinance language that is before you, and is also the ordinance language and the other legislation that is that other states have passed. There are 3 accepted classes. Class 1, which is the class that we are proposing, is pedal assist. The rider must pedal a Class 1 e-bike to get any assistance, and that assistance is from the very beginning. Chad with Spoken Sport was gracious enough last week to allow me to ride a Class 1 e-bike, and I can tell you that as soon as you start to pedal, that assist is there, and it is noticeable. A Class 2 e-bike is throttle assist. Throttle assist means that the rider does not have to pedal to receive power from the motor in the e-bike. Throttle only will move the e-bike as propelled by that motor. A Class 3 e-bike is pedal assist also, but it assists the rider up to 28 miles an hour. And I do want to make sure that people understand that even though the classes talk about these speeds, I'm not suggesting that all e-bike riders would ride these bikes to their maximum assist level, but it is simply what the e-bike is capable of. Through the federal code and through our proposed ordinance language, there is no restriction for any class of e-bike, and we are not proposing an age restriction on the Class 1 e-bike. Some other communities, of course, have passed this. As we discussed last week, there are 10 states with legislation. The draft proposed legislative language provided by the People for Bikes incorporates Class 1 e-bikes only in their draft legislation and leaves the Class 2 conversation to local authorities and leaves Class 3 out entirely. E-bike regulations do vary by state. Some states have put age restrictions on e-bikes, including Class 1 e-bikes, having riders be either 15 or 16 years of age before they can operate an e-bike within those states. Some states also have helmet requirements depending on the age of the riders. Again, we are not proposing any age restrictions or helmet requirements through our proposed ordinances. Also, some of the other states have said where the e-bikes would be allowed, and they have specifically excluded bike trails and sidewalks, which are really the 2 places that we feel would be appropriate for these Class 1 e-bikes would be on our sidewalk system and within our recreation trail system. Some of the other proposed ordinance changes would define an e-bike, would define it as a Class 1 e-bike. It also defines a cycle track, which is a bicycle amenity that we have on the west side of town on Maple Avenue. Would allow Class 1 e-bikes access to the bike trail, cycle tracks, and sidewalks. Again, within the recreation trail, the purpose of the recreation trail is for health and wellness, to keep people moving. This is what Parks and Recreation is about. And the Class 1 e-bike does require the trail user to exercise and provide some fitness as they are pedaling to get the assist of the e-bike. It does provide exclusive use of our bike lanes for bicyclists and Class 1 e-bikes. Also, the proposed ordinance language would provide the same allowances for bicycles and Class 1 e-bikes as it relates to how they are operated within the city for passing and signaling and those kinds of things. Some of the other things that are included in the ordinance revisions would be to add the definition of the recreation trail to Chapter 95, the Parks and Recreation Ordinance. This definition does live in the traffic code. This would simply mirror that definition and place it in Chapter 95 as well. Since we dove so deep into the traffic code and other ordinances in developing this proposed ordinance language, we are also proposing some ordinance changes that would allow for some of the pedestrian safety movements that are currently in place at controlled intersections. As I mentioned last week, the lead pedestrian interval at intersections such as 10th and Minnesota would be a good example of that. Just to make sure that these safety measures that we are currently in practice are in concert with our city ordinances. This would be a great first step for us to include Class 1 e-bikes and maintain the purpose of the bike trail system for fitness and recreation. As I had mentioned last week, this is a very big step for us. We do, at this point, do not allow any motorized vehicles on the bike trail system at all. So this is definitely a step that we have not taken lightly. And with that, we would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks a lot, Kelby. Is there anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, do you have questions for Kelby? I'll start with Councilor Sale and then Councilor Staley.
Kelby, the difference between a Class 1 and a Class 3 is just the speed?
Yes, sir.
How do you tell the difference?
Well, there's a sticker on the bike that tells you the difference. Outside of that, there's really no other way to do it. The Class 3 e-bikes that I did see at Spoken Sport last week were road bikes, so that may be one way. But definitely if somebody's going 28 miles an hour, especially on the recreation trail system, that's definitely an area of concern.
My last question is speed limit on the bike trails currently?
Currently, the speed limit on the bike trail is 15 miles an hour.
Thank you.
Councilor Staley.
Well, first of all, let me say how much I appreciate the flexibility of discussion we have right now during this first reading. You're giving us information, we're able to ask you questions, hear from the public if need be, and we take all that into consideration as we move forward with possible amendments for the second reading. So thank you for the wonderful presentation and the information. As a proponent of this measure, the questions that I have is, first of all, age requirement. So what is to keep a reckless, free-spirited 12-year-old kid from getting on one of these things and heading out, let's to the bike trails or down somebody's sidewalk?
Really, within the ordinance, nothing. The one thing that I would say that may prohibit some of that is the cost of the e-bikes. E-bikes are not cheap, so I would venture to guess that that parents paying, over $1,000 for a bike would definitely like to keep close tabs on that bike.
Well, cars are not cheap either. And so we certainly know that we have reckless drivers in the teen years in that sense. But if the Class 1 versus the Class 2, the Class 1 they have to pedal, but nothing, I'm thinking about somebody getting the Class 2 thing with the throttle, they put that thing on full gear and they just zoom down the sidewalk. Really, there's nothing to keep somebody from putting it full speed and heading wherever they want to, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, then the next thing I have a question about is on the bike trail right now, can a person use a motorized wheelchair? Or, you know, sometimes you have those scooter things, and could they bring a motorized scooter on the bike trail?
Yes, absolutely. We have what's called an other power-driven mobility device policy that was endorsed by the ADA Review Board and approved by the Parks and Recreation Board that allows for those type of mobility devices to be used on the recreation trail system at pedestrian speed.
So it's not always about your ability to make it move. We've already allowed for people to glide through it with
As
other
part
devices.
of a mobility device, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilors, other questions on this? Councilor Starr.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Maris. One of my, I guess I hadn't thought about it till tonight, is that we haven't talked about helmets as a safety device. What was the discussion between the advisory group and the Parks Board that not requiring helmets to be used? I had a neighbor, young lady who was 14 that ended up crashing her bike and spent 2 weeks in ICU because she wasn't wearing her helmet that was in the garage. But did we not consider that being a requirement at these type of speeds?
Right. We did not have that conversation, as maybe I mentioned before, and if I didn't, I apologize, but the 20-mile-an-hour assist level of an e-bikes is not an unattainable speed for a regular bicycle. And currently, we don't require helmets for regular bicycles either, and so it was just the allowance of this type of bicycle throughout the trail system and sidewalks.
But we could, there's that ability.
Oh, absolutely, we could.
One of those discussions. One of the other things that I guess I wanted to make a quick comment is that I did send out an amendment that I'm going to propose next week to require to allow Class 2 as well, with the major difference of taking a look at what Minnesota and Iowa and some other states do, and what they do to assist with the throttle, or the throttle being the only difference, is that my amendment would include that it would require that a saddle and a fully operable pedals for human propulsion be included as part of allowing Class 2. So again, it would not allow the other type of motorized vehicles on the trail and still keep it to be a trail, but it to be an assisted type of product, so that people could continue to bike as a family, that someone who's had knee replacement, other things, that that would allow them to continue the recreation that we're looking at without turning it into some kind of I don't know, speedway or some other way for recreational vehicles, but it would be a thing that would continue what we're trying to do with family oriented recreation on the trails. So I'll be bringing that and make a better case for it next week than that babbling.
Thanks, Councilor. Any other discussion on this? Councilor Neitzert?
This is a fascinating discussion. I just want to throw out for people, I do have this OPMD document in front of me, and it does have to do with providing reasonable accommodation for a handicap, but it's got to be at walking speed, and you must be able to prove that you actually, I mean, there's a documented disability. So, you know what would be interesting? So if somebody, I don't know why they would, but if somebody rode a Class 2 e-bike at walking speed and they could document a handicap, would this allow them to do that or not?
I would have to get a little more familiar with the particulars, because I also know there are width restrictions and length restrictions within that policy.
Have some, yeah.
But in a general sense, I would say yes, likely that if it was operated at pedestrian speed, it could be considered a mobility device.
Okay, interesting.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Councilor. Any other questions for Kelby? Can I get a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, December 18 on this item?
I would move to set a date of second reading.
Second, Brecky.
Moved by Starr and seconded by Brecky. Discussion amongst the council? Clerk, a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. And as an aside, so Boy Scout guys, that means that we're going to bring it at our next meeting on December 18. We're going to vote if we should have e-bikes. So they just said we should talk about it more. So that's how that works. How a bill becomes a law. There you go. Next item.
Item 17, a resolution vacating the South Emory Avenue right-of-way from the north line of Lot 2, Bacon's Addition, and Government Lot 2, Section 12, Township 100 North, Range 51 West of the 5th PM, Lincoln County, South Dakota, to the City of Sioux Falls, to Lots 12 and 13, Block 1 of Galway Park Addition, to the City of Sioux Falls, Lincoln County, South Dakota, according to the recorded plat thereof.
Hey, Kurt.
Good evening. Excuse me. Kurt Peppel, Public Works. The section of right-of-way in question is South Emory Avenue near 57th Street and Sertoma. Property owner Galen and Carl Riedemann submitted the right-of-way vacation petition pursuant to South Dakota law and complies with the city street vacation policy. The right-of-way is currently unimproved. This is looking south from closer to 57th Street, and this is looking north from the other street to the south. The road would never go through. It's not improved now. It's currently serves as a pasture. A neighborhood meeting was not required just because nobody's using it at this point. If the vacation is approved, an easement will not be reserved for public and private utilities. Engineering supports the vacation.
Thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Councilors, questions for Kurt? Can I get a motion on this one?
Move to approve. Second, Sale.
Move to approve, Kylie, seconded by Sale. Any discussion, council? Vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer.
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Next item, please.
Item 18, a resolution authorizing an application for financial assistance, authorizing the execution and submittal of the application, and designating an authorized representative to certify and sign payment requests.
Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight, we will ask for your support for us to make application for a loan for a key wastewater project that we'll walk you through with a few slides ahead of us. All right, this is generally known as the main pump station for the system. This moves over 90% of the city's wastewater. It's one of the most critical pieces of infrastructure that we have. Just to orientate you, this is generally north and east part of the city along Rice Street, and then we did do a call out where the existing station is. That station has been operating around the clock for the last 35 years. By the time the new one will be placed in service, this one will be operational for almost 40 years in a very caustic, high-flow environment. All right, this gives you just a little bit better location on the existing facility, and then we did do a cost analysis when you're either trying to build the new facility right next to it or generally close to it. What kind of risk will we be encountering there? These are very deep stations. You'll see a cutaway here very shortly. And when we did that cost analysis, we started to look at other potential locations in the very near vicinity, found a greenfield site that would be less than the cost of that risk that we were told by contractors. So we moved forward and purchased that green piece of land there where it says project location. If you remember that area, that strip through that alfalfa field, that's generally where the city council stood in those large 72-inch pipes probably about 2.5 years ago when that main outfall project was underway. This station will now cut that flow over from that 72-inch pipe and ultimately take it to the plant. All right, this just gives you a couple more pictures of the existing site and the greenfield site. Did want to remind you that when we talked about last week that there was existing projects, almost $90 million worth of work that was in previous capital plans, and then the plant work was added to it. This project actually first was acted on by the City Council back in 2014 and has been in 5 capital plans, including this one that you just acted on just recently in the 2019 to 2023 plan. All right, just a couple of slides on what we need to achieve. This station's essentially maxed out. It really, when we somewhat flood or surcharge the wet well, we can only get about 40 million gallons of wastewater through it. We need to get it up to about 65 million gallons of wastewater. They're considered submersible pumps, so the pumps are actually down in the waste, very difficult from a maintenance and access standpoint. And just with it being on service 35 years ago, there's new and better ways to do this more efficiently. When we get high river flows, many times we're sandbagging around this existing wastewater pump station to protect it. The new facility will actually be raised above the 500-year flood elevation to make sure it's protected. Improve how the wastewater comes into the facility, upgrade the electrical system, and that semi-trailer there, that's the backup generator. And so the new station will actually have a permanent facility on site. So the proposed pump station will locate on a new site, ease of construction, sequencing, staging, improved access, improved flood protection, increase its pumping capacity and efficiency, upgrade the electrical and emergency power, improve maintenance and accessibility, and then we'll demo the existing lift station. This gives you a couple of cutaways. Generally, everything in concrete is below ground. Since it's large gravity pipes come to this facility, that's why this facility has to be deep. Built several feet below ground, and then that control building will be at grade. All right, some timing. So this is considered the state revolving fund loan request number 40. Loan request for the project itself is $24.4 million. The interest rate that we would start out with in today's rates would be 2.5. We've talked in the past where the state of South Dakota will discount that rate 1% if we'll take that amount of dollars that we would normally spend in interest and spend it upstream north of the city to improve the watershed. So you'll see another number in addition to that $24.4 million. So our effective loan rate on this will be 20 years long at 1.5% interest. Tonight we have the application that we would ask for your support on. We have the facility plan due by the 1st. Generally, the Board of Water and Natural Resources will act on this in March, and then we'll be working with the bond council to actually bring you the bond documents after the first of the year. And then just a couple last slides. This is the work that's being done upstream. This is one of the great programs where we compensate farmers by the acre and multi-year to not graze between April and September to make sure we have good filter strips. We also on that one bank is fairly steep banks. We have programs that go in and slope those back so we can minimize the erosion, get those seeded back. Work with producers on animal manure management plans. A number of items, about 5 agencies work together to improve the watershed and the water quality in the Big Sioux River. That's what we have for you, and we're here to answer questions.
Thank you, sir. Anyone from the public wish to speak to this topic this evening? Councilors, questions for Mark? I'd look for a motion on this item.
Move to approve.
Second, Erickson.
Move to approve, Kylie, seconded by Erickson. Discussion, Council Shaley.
Well, I'm going to, you referenced last week, Director Cotter, so I'm going to reference back to last week as well. And just to mention, I did have a resolution wanting this to have the second penny as a backup. And I need to say publicly, because that resolution was developed with the help and assistance of our very respected staff member, Jim David. So he helps many of us craft these ordinances. So we couldn't do our jobs without this man. He is fabulous. And we also, I had it vetted through our own attorney sitting over here, Stacy Koistra. So it was a sound resolution, and that my concern is that we're never going to put a negative impact down the road on our citizens. I did vote against the rate increases, and just so the public understands that last week when that passed, that opened the door to start these projects. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yes. So this is the first piece. I am going to vote to support this. It's my hope as we're moving forward that we've got a $260 million debt that at the end of the day is that apparently that's the maximum of the principal without the interest. It is based on a speculative population growth down the road. It's based on the speculative amount of income that we're hoping to come in to pay for this debt. But Director Cotter, I do want to say something to you. I want you to take a message back to your employees in the wastewater treatment center. I want you to tell them, I respect what they do. I know they've done a great job in the past. And when I question things and vet things out, I feel that that is my responsibility as your elected official, to do due diligence for our citizens. So I wasn't meaning that they were doing anything ineffectively out there. In fact, apparently, we've outlasted the usability of that plant. But moving forward, I just want to make sure that we never put a financial hardship on our citizens and affect their quality of affordable living, okay? Just so you understand. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other discussion on that motion? We have a motion and a second. Seeing none, I'd ask for a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 19.
A resolution approving the release of permanent easements located in that part of vacated East Madison Street, lying adjacent to Track 1 in the northwest quarter of Section 15, Township 101 North, Range 49 west of the 5th PM, Minnehaha County, and Lot 1 and Block 1 of Hidden Hills, addition to the city of Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County, South Dakota, together with Track 2, except Lot A in the southwest quarter of Section 10, Township 101 North, Range 49 west of the 5th PM, Minnehaha County, South Dakota.
Hi, Kurt.
Good evening. The easement to be released is near North Cliff Avenue and East Rice Street in the Hidden Hills addition. The easement was reserved via a right-of-way vacation in 2001. No facilities are located within the easement area to be released. The easement's no longer needed. Engineering supports the release.
Thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public here to speak on this topic? Councilors, do you have questions for Kurt on this?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Selberg.
Okay, move to approve Erickson, seconded by Selberg. Any discussion? I vote on this, please.
Councilmember Selberg? Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Item 20.
A resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, correcting the legal description in Vacation Resolution Number 318.
Good evening, Council. Kurt Peppel again. Items 20, 21, and 22 are all related. They are correction resolutions from right-of-way vacations that were approved earlier this year in January of 2018. They were approved at City Council. They were filed with the Minnehaha County Register of Deeds. After the filing, the Register of Deeds discovered some incomplete legal descriptions. They're all on the east part of town on Arrowhead Parkway, near Get and Go, the Noodles and Company, and then just across the street there at Foss Avenue. The new resolutions tonight are just to correct some legal descriptions that were incorrectly put on those resolutions. Engineering requests your support and approval.
Thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this topic? Councilors, do you have questions for Kurt on this?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second.
Move to approve Erickson, seconded by Kylie. Councilors, any discussion? A vote on this, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Item 21.
A resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, correcting a legal description in Vacation Resolution Number 418.
Okay, that's the next one.
If there's any questions, I can.
Presented. So is there any questions on that parcel? Councilors, look for a motion, please. I should ask for public input. Anyone from the public wishes to speak on that? Seeing none, can I ask for a motion?
Move to approve.
Second, Brecky.
Move to approve Erickson, seconded Brecky. Can I ask for a vote on that, please?
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Item 22.
A resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, correcting a legal description in Vacation Resolution Number 518.
Anyone from the public here to speak on that specific item? Seeing none, look for a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
Move to approve by Sale, seconded by Kylie. I'd ask for a vote on that, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Next item, please.
A resolution approving the 2019 audit plan.
Mr. Mayor? if I could-
Councilor Nitzert.
Thank you. This audit plan was developed using a risk-based analysis of all city departments, interviews with all the city directors, and a review of the audits performed in recent years. We have 6 audits in the plan. The first is payroll employee deductions, which is a high dollar area that we have identified. The next 2 are public works audits. The first is an audit of landfill licensing, which will look at how we license garbage haulers. The second public works audit is a damage recovery billing process, which will look at how we bill and recover damages that are done to city property. The 4th and 5th audits are management services audits. We're going to audit SMG, which manages our events complex, the Sioux Falls Stadium and the Orpheum Theater, and then the sister contract to that, which is Ovations, which is our food service provider at those facilities. The last audit in the plan is a carryover audit, which means it's an audit that starts this year, which started this week actually, and it will roll into next year, which is our P-card audit, otherwise known as a purchasing card. This was identified as a high risk and high dollar amount area that we wanted to take a look at, and finance really wanted us to take a look at. We have a good mix of audits for 2019. If staffing changes, we may amend the current plan, but this is a good plan given our current staffing levels. I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Nitzert. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item? Councilors, I look for a motion on this.
Move approval. Second, Nitzert.
Move to approve by Selberg, seconded by Nitzert. Discussion, council? I'd ask for a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Item 24.
A resolution establishing reporting structures, pay scales, and evaluations for city council appointed staff.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Erickson.
Thank you. This is our annual City Council pay resolution that we are updating for the annual COLA. Our council staff positions are the city clerk, assistant city clerk, 2 of them, city council operations manager, budget analyst, internal audit manager, and 2 internal auditors. This does streamline, a while back, the council approved the operations manual that changed the reporting for our budget analysts that used to report to the finance committee. This was streamlined and changed to have them report to the operations committee as well, and the chair of operations, such as the rest of our staff. The COLA this year is 2.5, and so this is to adopt that COLA for our staff as well. On top of that, we did have the same presentation discussing the Siegel Waters report that was done that looked at the audit pay, which does impact looking at the market rate adjustment for some additional staff. The next item that is also addressed is changing our staff to a 9-step pay scale. What this does is streamlines it with what is currently done with other city employees, and also changes the performance evaluation as well. The steps are laid out here, and it's also on our resolution. I know we've talked about this at our informational last week, and again, this is really just an annual resolution along with just streamlining the process for the step scale as well as our evaluation time. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone from the public here to speak on that item? Look for a motion, council.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Nitzert.
Move to approve by Erickson and seconded by Nitzert. Council discussion on this? Seeing none,
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Staley.
I do want to say for the public, because people sometimes aren't aware that we've got staff members that help us. I call them support staff. And I will tell you, in the case of our own Jim David sitting here, I couldn't have done my job without him. And so having good people you can depend on is so important because we're part-time. Let's face it, most of us have other jobs, so we need people to help us do the research, help us write that legislation. He especially wears many hats and is so dependable and so trustworthy. So we do need to pay our staff to keep them around and get the best quality we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Counselors, any new business this evening?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn by Erickson, seconded by Selberg. All those in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion is carried. Our meeting is adjourned. Have a great night.